Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. How far is too far when it comes to getting revenge for the hurt caused? Today in the rLounge, lessons are learned the hard way for an attention-seeking sister. Sister insinuated paternity test on my kid. When she got pregnant, I did the same and she got divorced. I am fuming right now. Excuse me if I just ramble here. I, 38 female, am married to my husband, Kenny, 37 male, for 10 years. We have 2 kids, Dan, 4 male, and Jen, 2 female. My married life was smooth until my sister, Mia, 34 female, decided to blow it up. She always has a way of making everything about herself. She's like a human black hole, sucking attention away from everyone else. In case she doesn't get the attention she needs, she'll go to any lengths to have it at any cost. Last week was my parents' 40th anniversary, and we all gathered to celebrate it. First of all, she showed up late. We all waited for her, but it was getting late and the guests were getting impatient, so my parents started the celebration. When she arrived and saw the champagne was already popped out, she lost it. She gave me an ugly look, as if it was I who asked them to go ahead with it. She blew up at my parents in front of everyone for not waiting for her. My parents were embarrassed, but they managed with humor and jokes that they couldn't hold up any longer. It was not fun, but everyone moved past it. While having dinner, my parents and in-laws were engaged in talking to my elder one. He's like a star, who can go on and on talking about his play school, friends, and even girls. You know how children are these days. She was annoyed that everyone was hooked on Dan, and no one gave her the attention she needed. She tried all her tricks to get the eyeballs on her. She went on and on talking about their last trip without realizing that no one wanted to know what she ate for breakfast in her luxury suite. When everyone's attention swiftly went back to Dan, she got frustrated and remarked, "All their smiles and giggles would go away when the truth about his bobblehead comes out." It was supposed to be a whisper into her husband's ear, but it was loud enough for everyone to hear. She got what she wanted, attention. Kenny asked her what did she mean, and she smirked and said, "Sorry, was that out loud? Never mind." It got me intrigued, and I asked her to explain what truth she was talking about. She winked at me and said, "You know about Dan." Everyone was like, "What about him?" She made it seem she didn't want to say, but on everyone's insistence she was saying it. She said, "Dan's paternity is an open secret, right?" I freaked out and demanded an explanation as to what she was trying to insinuate. She chuckled and said, "Look at his black hair. Isn't it funny? I mean, neither you nor Kenny do, but didn't your ex-boyfriend have black hair?" I flipped out at her. "Do you not know how genetics work? Dad has black hair, and a lot of other family members from Kenny's side also have black hair. It doesn't mean he's not our son." She shrugged while enjoying the chaos she had unleashed and said, "Relax, it's just a joke. No need to get so defensive," and whispered under her breath, "If you're so sure, then run a paternity test, and we'll know who his father is." Everyone looks mortified while she lets out a smile, pleased with herself. I stood up from the table and said, "I don't need to prove anything to anyone. He's our son, and we both know it." My parents and others tried to mediate, but we both were unstoppable. She was insinuating that I was cheating on my husband and that my son was an affair baby, and I cannot let that slide. I said, "You take it back, or else I'm going to ruin you." Mom rebuked Mia and asked her to apologize right away. Instead of apologizing, she said, "I was just joking. Don't be a baby." I breathed fire on her and said she had stepped on the wrong territory, and I was going to ruin her. I stormed off from the table. My parents tried to pacify me, but I just couldn't hold my temper. I picked up my kids, who were asleep by now, and headed out to the car. Kenny followed me, and we drove off. The ride back home was silent. I don't know why, but I just couldn't muster the courage to ask him if he trusted me. At that moment, I was craving for his assurance, but he didn't say a word. We came back home, and Kenny went straight to bed. I was restless for the rest of the night. None of us addressed the elephant in the room. I couldn't hold it up longer, so I confronted him about it in the evening. I asked if he trusted me, and he said yes, undoubtedly. He tried to play it cool at first, insisting that he trusted me, but I could see it in his eyes the doubt Mia had planted was growing like a weed. After a long pause, he admitted that he was taken aback by Mia's instinctiveness. He said my reaction had gotten him thinking about it because if it was all nonsense, I shouldn't have gotten so defensive. I don't know how I could have kept calm when she was saying something so vile. What hurts more is that Kenny knows how evil Mia is, and he's still falling into her trap. More than her, I'm hurt by my husband. Mia has always been like this. I don't know how she feels I'm a golden child to my parents, when the truth is my parents raised us with equal love, and whatever I got in life is because I have earned it or because of my luck. It has nothing to do with being a favorite child. She says she feels neglected and everyone wonders how could she possibly think this way. Never mind that I worked hard to build my life, my career, and my marriage. Mia's narrative was simple. I got everything and she got nothing. It started when my husband, Kenny, and I got engaged. Actually, Kenny and I have known each other since childhood because our parents were close friends. Naturally, we started dating and everyone was really happy about it. And it increased manifold when we got engaged. Her behavior was so disturbing that I had to ask her if she had any feelings for Kenny, and she said no. She hated the fact that everyone was just obsessed with me and Kenny and that she felt like a side character of the family. At my wedding, she got so drunk and created a nuisance that she had to be escorted out of the venue and locked in a room to sleep. The jealousy simmering inside of her turned every little joy in my life into something she had to overshadow. She couldn't stand the idea of me being happy. She wanted someone like Kenny, who makes good money and also is good looking. She got a guy who's way more handsome than Kenny, but he's a jerk and doesn't talk to anyone properly. They're trying for a baby for a long time, but still no luck. I understand this stuff is hard, and sometimes it stings to see other happy, but hello, it's not my fault. I didn't do anything about it, and neither I dig on those sensitive topics. She's the one who brings this up, that she has gotten a terrible fate and stuff. I reminded Kenny about how Mia has always been a troublemaker, and this was all a tasteless stunt to get the attention. He admitted that Mia is an attention seeker, but he also cannot stop remembering the days I used to date my ex. Like I said, Kenny and I knew each other since mid-school, and there were so many times he saw me with my ex, but I never dated two men at the same time. I started dating Kenny much later after I broke up with my ex. We broke up amicably when he took up a job overseas. We remained in touch as friends for some time before going no contact, and much later after that, I started dating Kenny. I never talked or met my ex after I got engaged to Kenny. He said he trusted me, but he can't shake off the feeling that things were so good with my ex and we were so happy. The more I tried to reassure him, the more paranoid he became. Every little fight we had somehow circled back to that one comment Mia had made. Finally, he dropped the bomb. "Why don't we just get a paternity test and get this over with?" I was furious and snapped at him. "You want me to validate a lie just to ease your insecurities?" I can't tell you how mad I got. I blew out at him and that I was not going to do a test and let that witch win. It led to an ugly fight between us, and since then, there's often been a fighting match between us. The worst part is my children are getting affected. The other day, my mother-in-law called me and Dan picked up the phone. She asked him where were we, and he said Mom and Dad have locked themselves up in their room and fighting. It broke my heart to hear this. Mother-in-law spoke to Kenny and asked him to be supportive and not indulge in baseless rumors. But I don't know what got into his head, and he's pestering me for this test. My in-laws are very supportive and don't want our marriage to fall apart. The thing is, no matter what everyone says, Kenny is still salty about the whole stuff. He's saying you don't need to tell everyone that we did the test. We can keep it to ourselves and we uphold your pride. I have started losing my guard and thinking about getting it done because it's affecting my children. What do you guys think? Kenny's totally being influenced by Mia's words more than he should be. His doubts are clearly rooted in her manipulation, and it's tough when someone you love starts to question your trust because of something that was planted by a third party. What she said was calculated and meant to tear down your family. The idea of a paternity test is ridiculous and feels like letting Mia win. You've already made it clear that you trust each other, and you shouldn't have to prove anything to anyone. Update 1. I held on to my guns for a while, but the tension was suffocating and I couldn't take it anymore. I swallowed my pride and reluctantly, I agreed to the test, hoping it would put everything to rest. The results came back and no surprise, Dan was 99.9% matched to Kenny. He apologized profusely, but the damage was already done. When I told my mom about the test, she said Mia had confessed that she deliberately stirred the air because she was fed up with everyone obsessing over us. She felt we were creating unnecessary fuss about being a happy family. I couldn't let go of the fact that she had almost destroyed my house with her baseless accusation. When I told Mia that I was going to ruin her, I wasn't joking. I started digging into her life. She had 2 Facebook accounts. One she had created in her high school days and the other one she created recently when she started dating her husband. I was added to both of them. She was active in the new one. She told everyone that she had abandoned the older one, but I had this gut feeling that she was up to something through that account. I created a bunch of fake Facebook accounts with details that were not remotely close to me or anyone in the family. I also created some fake accounts on Instagram and TikTok to follow her. She eventually accepted the request of one of my Facebook accounts and I began to follow her extensively. I joined all the groups she was a part of, and that's where the gold was. She was actively promoting infidelity and sharing tips on how to cheat without getting caught. She would comment stuff like, "Marriage is a trap," and "Always have a backup plan, ladies." It was so satisfying to uncover the truth. She had been so smug about my life falling apart, was living in a glass house and throwing stones at me. Mia was an active member of a group where people were posting their marriage problems due to them cheating on their partners. I posted a fake problem that I was cheating on my husband and how to cover it up. She commented several tips and tricks on how to have a secret life. I reached out to her on DM and went deeper into my hypothetical problems, and she used herself as an example to explain to me how simple it was to fool husbands. I scrolled through the group's history and found that there was this guy who was cheating on his girlfriend and came for advice a few months ago, and since then, Mia has been actively engaging with him in the group. I took as many screenshots as possible of everything. I was scared to be kicked off if they realized it was a fake account. Once I collected enough evidence, I thought to burst her bubble. Just during that time, I got to know she's pregnant. What I know is she has been trying for a baby for a long time, and now when she's finally having one, I'm thinking whether should I ruin it or not. I showed Kenny all the evidence I collected, and he was aligned that we should disclose this to her husband. However, after her pregnancy news came out, he's apprehensive and says maybe we shouldn't ruin their marriage for a baby's sake. He thinks we don't have any evidence of her cheating, so it could be just that she was flirting or maybe using that group as an escape from her unhappy life. I'm in two minds now. I know for sure that the proof I have is enough to get her husband to have a DNA test on the baby, and even if it is his, this would create tension between them like it happened in our case. She also has a high-risk pregnancy, and this stress would have a negative impact on her and the baby. So I'm thinking about whether I really need to stoop so low to get my revenge. Update 2. After thinking a lot, I let it pass for a while. I thought maybe it wasn't the right time to attack, and maybe motherhood would humble her, and if not, she would give me enough opportunities to make it even. Like I said, kindness wasn't in her DNA, and she called for my actions sooner than I expected. As her pregnancy progressed, she started talking trash about being pregnant and about being a mother in that group. She even commented on one of the posts that she accidentally got knocked up by her husband, and now she has to go through the trouble and how she wishes to get rid of it. It sounded so fishy that I could no longer hold back and decided to expose her. After our fight at the anniversary and her confession about intentionally ruining my marriage, my parents were low contact with her, but when her pregnancy news came out, they resumed contact. Mia asked them to throw a baby shower for her as they did for me. Mom organized it and invited me as well. I thought this was the best opportunity to uncover her truth. If she didn't think twice before humiliating me publicly, then why should I? Also, seeing her activities in the group, it was clear she didn't care about the unborn. On baby shower day, Mia played the doting mom-to-be, gushing about how excited she was to welcome her baby. But I knew better. After the party, when most of the guests left, I casually dropped the bombshell. "So, Mia, did you run the paternity test on the baby?" She chuckled and said, "I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to get back at me. Our marriage is not so fragile like yours." I said, "Really? But you don't seem so happy about being married or about being pregnant." Then it pulled out the phone and showed everything to her husband as to what she had been talking about in the group. She turned pale and then abusive that I was spying on her. I said, "I told you I'm going to ruin you." She hurled abuses at me, but her husband was like, "That's not the point. Care to explain yourself?" She said she didn't mean any of those things, and she pretended herself that way so that others were more accepting of her. I wanted to suggest he check her phone. I didn't need to spell it out for him. He had already been suspicious. He asked for the phone, but she denied it up front. Instead of settling the matters with her husband, she pounced on me and calling me names. I said, "Let's make this fair. You made me take a paternity test over a baseless accusation. Now it's your turn." She refused, insisting that she didn't need to prove anything. But her refusal only made her husband more determined. The fight escalated between them. My mom pulled me to the corner and asked if this was really necessary and couldn't be the bigger person and let go of the past. I said no. I can't let her walk all over me anymore. She'll reap what she sowed. Kenny and I left shortly after that. Needless to say, my relationship with my mom got bitter and we went no contact. I had other family members filling up the tea. I got to know that her husband refused to settle until she ran the paternity test. He argued that if your sister could take it, why can't you? Mia, however, refused to have the test done. The fight got so bad that he moved out of the house, leaving her alone in the third trimester. My parents were devastated. They begged him to reconcile, at least until the baby was born, but he wouldn't budge. They even pushed Mia to get the test done and close the matters, but she was ready for the divorce, but not for the test. Helplessly, my parents had to take her in because they couldn't leave her alone in this condition. It was then my mom realized that something was wrong. She overheard Mia giving the pregnancy details to someone over the call and also cribbing about her husband. Initially, she thought it was her friend, but eventually realized that it was a guy, as she would say stuff like, "I wish the baby looks like me, and if I get divorced, you'll have to pitch in." Mom then called me and said maybe I did the right thing by exposing her, and maybe she's not carrying her husband's baby. Mom made it clear to her that she's on her own once the baby comes out. When the baby finally arrived, the resemblance, or lack thereof, was glaring. The child didn't look like Mia or her husband, which only fueled her suspicions. He demanded a test again, but she still refused. He left the hospital and never turned back. My parents gave her an option. Either she take the test and it better be positive and she goes back to her husband, or she gets back on her feet and lives independently. She still didn't take the test. He finally filed for the divorce and got her served. My parents were heartbroken. They realized that her toxic behavior wasn't just limited to her relationship with me. It extended to every corner of her life. As my parents pieced together Mia's lies, they figured out she had been seeing another man for months. He was the real father of the baby, but he had no interest in stepping up. Mia had been trying to keep him a secret, hoping her husband would raise the child as his own, as he desperately wanted to be a father. Eventually, she confessed she was intentionally not getting pregnant for all these years, but she was just putting up an act that she wasn't able to. She accidentally got knocked up by her affair partner. Instead of taking accountability for her actions, she blamed me for everything. Mia told Mom that if I, hadn't meddled, her husband would have never left. The truth was out, and there was no going back. Her husband refused to take her back. The other man wanted nothing to do with her, and she was left to face the consequences of her actions. When she couldn't do anything about it, she unleashed her anger on me and sent me a barrage of texts, accusing me of destroying her life and vowing to get revenge. I blocked her number. I'm not going to let her toxic behavior affect me any longer. I'm living the best life with my husband and kids. As for those of you who are continuously commenting on all my updates that I should have divorced my husband for pushing me to the test, let me make it clear. I'm not going to divorce him, nor for this reason at least. I feel he was right in his place. Having seen me happy with my ex and how amicably we broke up and still remained in touch, anyone would get insecure. He never crossed his line, and neither did I, so I'm not letting this fight ruin my beautiful marriage. It's infuriating when someone does so much damage and still acts as if they're the victim, as she did at the baby shower. It's clear from the start that she's playing games, and she's been playing with people's lives to cover up her own wrongdoings. Sometimes, people like her only learn the hard way, and you did nothing wrong, OP. Somebody had to teach her a lesson. Anyway, it's good to hear that you've made the decision to block her out completely. You don't need that toxicity in your life anymore. What do you make of this? Do you have a sibling that went too far? Let us know below. And thank you for joining us today in the rLounge. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.